بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Knowing Your Religion and I'm your host Hatem Al-Absalam. Please join me in welcoming my distinguished guest, Sheikh Kahlan bin Nabhan Al-Kharusi, the Assistant Grand Mufti of the Sultanate of Oman. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, Brother Hatem.
How are you, Sheikh, today?
Very well, thank you.
Alhamdulillah.
And allow me as well to welcome all our audience. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May Allah the Almighty guide us all to the right path, shower our lives with His mercy and enrich our knowledge in His religion.
Sheikh, we are always honored to have you on the program. We are learning so much and we are gaining lots of knowledge in our religion through this program. And we're getting a lot of feedback from our listeners about their concerns and their questions. And as you always said, every time we get very creative questions about very critical topics which are of concern to our listeners.
Well, the honor is mine, Brother Hatem, and I have to admit that I really benefit from the questions that we receive and from the comments as well and the feedback that we get from our brothers and sisters and friends who are listening and following the episode of Knowing Your Religion, and all their concerns are always welcome.
Sheikh, the past 2 weeks we spoke about one topic, which is the Sharia, and we went into details when it came to Sharia and the elements of Sharia and the different types of items and sections in the Sharia. And we stopped last episode at a question, and I think we promised our listeners that we will have it this week as we were running out of time. So maybe today we would dedicate a small part of the show to continuing the topic of Sharia, and inshallah, if time permits, then we're going to take other questions that were sent from our listeners.
Inshallah.
The question that I asked you last time, Sheikh, was what is the current world position without the Sharia law being implemented?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. All praise be to Allah. Peace and blessings be upon His last messenger. Now, I think from what we have been talking about in the last 2 weeks, I think that to use the word Sharia doesn't need the other part of it, which is commonly used to say Sharia law, because Sharia by itself is more comprehensive. It does include the acts of worship. It does include as well the legal system in a society, as well as the morals and the ethical values that represent the principles of a society. So we are not talking only about a legal system, but as far as this term is commonly used, then I think when they are talking about Sharia law, they do mean Sharia in general. And when they talk about Sharia law, so they are limiting Sharia to the legal system. And as also was proven in the last 2 weeks, even when we are talking about a legal system or a legal system that is compliant to Sharia, then we are not only talking about penalties, but we are talking about all the legal components and elements required to establish and construct a system that is able to spread justice, equality, transparency, and a balance between duties and rights. And this is exactly what the Sharia is doing. So we have to understand that the ultimate goals of Sharia, as Allah the Almighty has revealed it in the Holy Quran, are these main goals: to spread justice, equality, balance between duties and rights, transparency, a moral system, and not least of all, of course, is a moderation. And that's why we do have rulings and principles that are permanent, untouched. They are well established. They are precisely fixed in this Sharia, in its original sources, in the Holy Quran and in the authentic prophetic tradition. And we do have also an area that is very changeable, which we have call it as the flexible area, within which qualified scholars are asked to practice their ijtihad, their reasoning, to conclude principles and rulings relevant to the main sources of Islam and to the mainstream of Sharia, and at the same time that are inclusive of the matters of their place and time. Now back to your main point. Based upon this introduction, then we are going to witness that there is a decline all around the world. There is a decline in the relationship between people and their Creator. There is a confusion between people's relationship themselves, between nations. There is instability between nations. There is a high level of discrimination, of all kinds of discrimination, either ethnic discrimination or cultural discrimination, or you name it. There is also a decline at the sectors of economy. The world of finance and economy also is suffering of a lot of failures from time to time, and when we do have such failures, then they are of a global nature, so everybody suffers out of these failures. And I think that the reason behind such declines at all sectors are due to the diversion from the straight path of Allah the Almighty, from the guidance that we have received from Allah, which is known as the Sharia. And I can prove this through some verses from the Holy Quran, in which we do find that Allah the Almighty says, as in one place in Surah An-Nisa, when He says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ وَخُلِقَ الْإِنسَانُ ضَعِيفًا. God, Allah, wants to lighten your burdens, for man has been created weak. Now, when we read this verse, it corrects a lot of misconceptions, because people think that those who are adherent to the religion of Allah the Almighty and abide by the Sharia revealed by Allah the Almighty, that they are more tough and they add burdens to themselves, and they enter difficulties, and they do not enjoy their life, which is totally wrong.
And this is also very common, Sheikh, to many Muslims.
Yes, within Islamic societies, they do tend to think that whoever attached to the religion of Allah the Almighty and be more conscious and fulfill the requirements of his own religion and submit to the will of Allah, that he is more tough, harsh, he is increasing his or her burden, he is not flexible, he is not enjoying his life, which is, as I said, absolutely wrong, and it is the opposite which is right, because as I said, Allah the Almighty says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَن يُخَفِّفَ عَنْكُمْ. Allah wants to ease your life, to remove the burdens. And here we do understand how Allah the Almighty, when He revealed this revelation to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, He has ascertained in the Holy Quran this fact. He has ascertained this fact, and He made it very explicit and clear when He says, مَا جَعَلَ عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الدِّينِ مِنْ حَرَجٍ. He has made no burden for you on this religion. And when he says, يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ بِكُمُ الْيُسْرَ وَلَا يُرِيدُ بِكُمُ الْعُسْرَ, Allah wants the ease for you. He doesn't want difficulties and toughness for you, O mankind. And the address here is not only for Muslims or believers, but all these addresses are for all mankind, for all people. And it can be also even proven through these statistics. We are all witnessing that people nowadays are complaining. They are complaining of everything. They are those who are concerned on or they do pay attention for their spirituality, they are complaining. Those who are involved in this life and the worldly matters, they are complaining. Some of them are complaining from the legal systems, others from the economic systems. You will find others that are complaining from the social structure in their societies, others even from the health care providers in their societies. I mean, I am not arguing that everybody is just dealing with their life nowadays in this negativity, but it is a fact that wherever you turn your face, you are going to find that people are complaining. Now, if you search for the elements or the factors behind this complaint, then it is easy going to be concluded that it is because of the efforts wasted. I'm talking about intellectual efforts, I'm talking about even materialistic efforts at the collective level even, that are wasted trying in the pursuit of happiness and feeling satisfaction of people's life. So everyone is searching for happiness and searching for satisfaction, yet they cannot find it. They carry on and continue their lives with all the miseries that they are facing, in the hope that one day they are going to find what they are searching for.
Some of them end up taking their lives, Sheikh.
Yeah, absolutely. And others, I mean, find for other ways, like using drugs as an example, just to escape this life and to escape the challenges that they are facing. Others have reached the level of being careless, and they are just living like, and I have to say it, like animals, eating and drinking and consuming the enjoyments of this life, and they do not care any longer. So all what we are saying here, on the other hand, also we don't want to be very negative when we are dealing with these issues. The progress, when I said that a lot of efforts are wasted in the pursuit of happiness and satisfaction, all these efforts could have been spared if we rely on the Sharia revealed by Allah the Almighty. We are going to find a combination between the sacred and the profane, between spirituality and the worldly gains, the materialistic requirements and needs, in a very peaceful harmonization between all these elements, which will lead definitely to satisfaction and to happiness, because then the ultimate goal is going to be achieved easily with a common reference that we all belong to, and we all measure all our actions and deeds in accordance to. But this doesn't mean that there aren't any good efforts and good achievements by mankind, by people nowadays. If we look at these achievements, then we are going to discover that they are within the Sharia, they are accepted by Sharia. And I think I gave some examples in the previous weeks when I said even in the legal system, or if we look at the legislative bodies all around the world, or systems that organize people's life, then we are going to discover that this is what the Sharia is calling for. Justice, fight against corruption, increase the morals of people, making them in a better characters and better qualities, based people's life and recognized their diversity with appreciation of this diversity and with respect of others who belong to different cultures, removing all sorts of discrimination, dignifying human being, and then organizing their lives in accordance to the Sharia. And I think the example that I already gave when I talked about Islamic banking as an example. Nowadays, different governmental entities in the East and in the West, they are accepting and including within their, and mostly within their capitalistic economic systems, they do include and make all the changes required to absorb and accept the principles of Islamic banking. Here, they have no sensitivity against Sharia, although what they are doing is no more than the process of developing towards a Sharia system, at least in the sector of banking and financing. The same thing if we take the example of the social structure of a society, then we are going to find that there are a lot of good examples of how to eliminate the classes, the social classes in a society, and spread equality and make a balance between duties and rights. No discrimination is based upon gender, but there are assignments on each gender, males and females, and there are rights and duties assigned for every human being as well as for the society. There are social responsibilities which would lead to social justice, which of course is a very crucial element in establishing or enriching happiness and comfort for all individuals in that societies. If we take the example of international affairs and international relationships, then we are going to find that there are many evidence taken from this Sharia, the Islamic Sharia, supporting that whenever there is a conflict, so avoid initiating wars and try to reconcile and make peaceful agreements. If we read the verse in Surah At-Tawbah, when Allah the Almighty says, وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ in Surah Al-Anfal, Allah says, وَإِن جَنَحُوا لِلسَّلْمِ فَاجْنَحْ لَهَا وَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ. If they incline to peace, then you have to incline immediately to peace. So if there is any sign from any party that we do have a conflict with of peace or achieving peace, then it is our duty to show and prove that we prefer peace as well. And now let's imagine our world today, and we all know the unstable times that we are experiencing nowadays.
Yes, sir.
Wars, conflicts everywhere. In the Middle East, in Africa, in Europe itself, in the East, in the West. Sometimes they are shown in the media. In other occasions they are not shown, although they are taking place and they are happening. All these, could have been avoided if we apply the principles of avoiding the elements of conflict, making our priority towards the universal interests, that is what is better for human being and what is better for our universe. If we give priority for peace and use our religion to spread a peaceful message and to remove the factors of the conflicts and to bring people to negotiation and dialogue These are the principles that this Sharia is calling for. So I think now I have given examples from the social sector, the economical sector, the international affairs, from spirituality that is required, the moral structure of a society, and the when I'm talking about a spiritual structure, I'm not talking about a hierarchy. I am talking about a direct relationship as it has been revealed in this Sharia, in the sources of this Sharia, that there is no authority for anyone on this earth between Allah the Creator and His servants, a human being. They can have and they have to have their direct relationship with their Allah, with their Creator, Allah the Almighty. All what they have to do is to be sincere, to submit to His will, to be obedient to Him. And there's no interference from anybody on this universe. How have we received this Sharia? It is through the messengers, it is through the prophets. So they are the best human exemplars of this Sharia. All of them. We are not only talking about, as proven also in the first episode of this topic, that this is the religion, this is the Sharia which has been brought by all prophets and messengers when it comes to faith, when it comes to religion in general. But when it comes to details and the practical aspects, then there are variations, but they are serving the same purpose, to be obedient and to submit to the will of Allah the Almighty. And I'm sorry if I have given a lot of details, Brother Hatim, on this stuff, but it is fascinating.
Details are very
question.
good and very important, Sheikh, so that our listeners can understand this topic better. Now, Sheikh, there is a counter argument from the other side, where it says that Muslims are always propagating for the Sharia law, and that the Sharia law will be the savior for humanity, and it will solve all the problems for humanity. But at the same time, Muslims are not implementing the Sharia and solving their own problems. Yeah, so it's very difficult for others to implement the Sharia while the Muslims themselves, they have not reached to that level of content that they have solved all their problems. So the question is, has the Sharia been implemented in the past in a way that it has stabilized life for the believers and unbelievers, and has solved their problems, and have kept the human beings in a very comfortable way, as prescribed by Almighty Allah, the way He wanted it?
It's a very good question, Brother Hatim. Yes, the right forward answer is yes. I mean, if we look back to history, then we are going to discover that during the era in which Muslims were taking the lead, then humanity, all human beings, have experienced progress, scientific progress, a lot of discoveries at all fields, in physics, in medicine, astronomy, in mathematics, all fields of science. Human beings have achieved high levels of advancement in science. If we are to generalize, then even in terms of global issues at that time, civilization was in prosperity and in progress. And of course, this due to the sort of leadership that this Sharia has provided. We cannot claim that Muslim rulers throughout their history have been implementing Sharia 100%, but there is a common sense, and at least in their legal systems, they were referring, the criteria by which they were ruling was the Sharia. And also the inspiration that this religion, this Sharia has given them, definitely has its influence on them being active, being progressive, positive in whatever sector they are in. And that's why when I said, let's take the example of harmony between followers of different faiths. You wouldn't, within under the umbrella of the Islamic ruling, people of different faiths were enjoying practicing their religions, their faiths freely, and at the same time they were treated equally in terms of opportunities found in their states. I will give an example here in Oman. 200, 300 years ago, when the leader was appointed by the people and was called the Imam Azzan ibn Qais, the person who was in charge of the port in Sur was appointed by the Imam himself to be a Hindu citizen, Omani citizen. Yet he is a Hindu, but because he was qualified and he was a citizen, he was appointed by the Imam to be responsible and to be in charge of the port of Sur at that time. So this is when I said that people throughout the era in which Muslims were taking the lead have experienced progress and prosperity, and they have achieved this enabled them to achieve a good level of life, a progress at all sectors, and many people, many researchers, many scholars, many historians have admitted the fact that part of the European Renaissance was due to the enlightenment that they have benefited from Muslims during their civilizational leadership. And the same thing is also true when it comes to advancement in sciences. Many of these scientific facts and scientific discoveries were made by Muslim scientists. Now I'm not a person who is living in the past, and I don't call Muslims just to remember and call on their past, but if it is to prove one of the facts, then we have to use the history. We have to refer back to history. Now, having said that, we need also to admit a fact that we have failed, we as Muslims, states and individuals. We have failed in submitting projects, strategic plans that are assisting in solving global concerns. We are doing nothing when it comes to fighting poverty, as an example, which is a global concern. We do not have any programs to eliminate illiteracy. We are still at the top list of nations who are illiterate. Muslims themselves, let alone if we are talking about submitting proposals of practical projects that would help societies to eliminate illiteracy. We are not part of solving political problems. Indeed, we are participating in increasing these conflicts, and we are initiating wars, civil wars as well as even regional wars, which definitely has its impact on the image that we are presenting of our religion. And any outsider, and I mean by outsider who is unaware of the what we have been describing of the Sharia and the how beautiful is this Sharia, is going to judge us through these projects, through these contemporary situation that we are living in, and we cannot blame them. We should blame ourselves of not being able to, as I said, provide the rest of the world of such programs, such strategies, such projects that would save human being, that would protect our life, that would preserve our environment, that would let people experience reconciliation and harmony, eliminate discrimination, spread justice, fight corruption. These are the global issues and global concerns that we should concentrate on in increasing people's morality, in increasing the importance of dialogue, even with those who do not believe in such principles and faith. But this doesn't mean that we disrespect them or just ignore them or marginalize them. We have to listen to them. We have to have negotiation, dialogues with them. We have to have constructive programs, because still, I mean, if they are wise, definitely they do care about this life. They do care about things that are noble in this life. They do care about constructing and avoiding clashes. But we do nothing on this regard. So if we are to take the responsibility of convincing others of this Sharia, then this should not be done through our words, but it should be conducted and implemented through projects, plans and strategies that are, first of all, conceivable by the rest of the world, and second, are implemented and being practiced by Muslims first, and then let's produce them to the rest of the world. It is only then that we can. Now, I don't want also to make things complicated. Let's take the first steps. We should at least present our manifestation and then take some steps. And I have no doubt that those who are wise, those who do care about humanity and human being and our universe, are going to participate, and they are going to be convinced. But we have, first of all, to be confident on our religion and on our Sharia. We have to correct this distorted image, not through our words but through our actions. We have to provide the rest of the world such projects and strategies. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Sheikh, there are two words that are always attached to Sharia. How vital and important are these words as concepts within the Sharia? Those two words are justice and equality. And maybe many states failed to implement the Sharia because of the lack of these two concepts, justice and equality.
You're absolutely right, Brother Hatim. And I have been also quoting these maxims throughout my description and my explanation of Sharia, because they are indeed the main maxims. They are the focal points of this Sharia. And that's why you will find that all Muslim scholars, they admit the fact that Sharia is always available when there is justice. And when there is no justice, then there is no Sharia. And associated to justice is, of course, interests of people, the common interest. And that's why they call it maslaha. And the maslaha is the common interest, which means the global interest, including the individual interests. So always Sharia is associated with justice and equality. Let me quote some verses. Yes, Brother.
Before you continue, Sheikh, maybe after the verse, is that maybe you can give us some examples of to what extreme that justice was implemented at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah, that's what made the Sharia very, very solid, and the believers continued with this legacy of justice among themselves and among the people who are following them. So,
right. First of all, let me quote the verse, at least one verse. Although, I mean, talking about justice in the Holy Quran is something that is repeatedly used. It occurs over and over in different occasions in the Holy Quran. But this verse would explain a lot of what we are talking here. Allah the Almighty says in Surah Al-Hadid, لَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا رُسُلَنَا بِالْبَيِّنَاتِ وَأَنزَلْنَا مَعَهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْمِيزَانَ لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. Allah the Almighty says, indeed, even aforetime did we send forth our apostles with all evidence of this truth, and through them we bestowed revelation from on high, and thus gave you a balance wherewith to weigh right and wrong, so that men might behave with equity, and we bestowed upon from on high. Here, at the first part of the verse, Allah the Almighty is, as He is saying that we haven't sent our apostles and we haven't sent down our revelation except for the purpose of spreading justice and equality between people. لِيَقُومَ النَّاسُ بِالْقِسْطِ. This is the ultimate purpose. And here we will find that the word used is an-nas, all mankind. It's not only believers, not only Muslims. Now back to some examples. Not many people are imagining that about 7 to 11 verses of the Holy Quran were revealed just to declare the innocence of a Jew who was accused of stealing from a Muslim house. He was accused of stealing a shield, and all evidence were against him, because they found the shield when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was informed. He asked to investigate. He asked Muslims to investigate, and then they found the stolen shield in the house of the Jew. Although he was innocent, but a weak-hearted Muslims did the stealing, and when they knew that this could be known and disclosed, they threw the shield into the house of the Jew. But the Jew has no evidence at all, and all evidence, as I said, were against him. It is only then, when Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was about to announce his verdict, he received revelation from Allah the Almighty, in which the declaration of the innocence of the Jew was declared in these verses, and a very harsh warning was revealed for those weak-hearted Muslims of what they have done. And this is found in Surah An-Nisa from verse 105 to the verse 113. So I'm talking about 7 verses still recited. We do read them in our prayers. We do read them when we are reciting the Holy Quran in our circles, in our universities, schools, even our children. And the story was originally, or these verses were originally revealed because of the story that I already mentioned. And the first verse of this button says, إِنَّا أَنزَلْنَا إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ بِالْحَقِّ لِتَحْكُمَ بَيْنَ النَّاسِ بِمَا أَرَاكَ اللَّهُ وَلَا تَكُنْ لِلْخَائِنِينَ خَصِيمًا. But Allah the Almighty says, behold, we have bestowed upon thee from on high this divine writ, setting forth the truth, so that you might judge between people in accordance with what God has taught thee. Hence, do not contend with those who are false to their trust. So this is the first, and then the button continues, as I said, announcing and declaring the innocence of the Jew against those who are weak-hearted, and then of course they were captured and declared guilty. But the Jew who was from a different faith, and some of his tribal men at that time were in conflict with Muslims, yet this is not an excuse of generalizing the judgment and accusing innocent people of things that they haven't done. And throughout Muslim history, this was the case. I mean, if we look at the guided caliphs, then we are going to find in many occasions a follower of Christianity or Judaism would sue the caliph himself to the judge, claiming a right. And then the caliph would stand shoulder to shoulder to his opponent in the court. And he will be asked to show his evidence. And when he has no evidence, then the statement is going to be against him for the sake of the Jew or Christian. And this took place. I'm not talking about, stories of our history.
This was the story of Caliph Ali.
Ali ibn Abi Talib, absolutely, yes. And this, it has happened throughout our history. And we have to admit that it is the principle of justice which matters most. To the extent that some Muslim scholars say that the thrones would last if there is justice, regardless of their submission to the will of Allah or their faith. So they mean that thrones are based upon justice more than the claim of being faithful. And if people claim that they are faithful, yet they are not implementing justice, then they will lose their thrones. So, which means their legacy. So this is the importance, and that's why the importance of justice and equality, and that's why they do occur repeatedly when we are talking about Sharia. Even if we look at the details of, when I said that part of the Sharia is the financial transactions, the deals and the contracts that people are in need of to make their life easy, then the distinctive maxim upon which all these transactions is built is no more than justice. So that both parties are going to experience justice and their rights are going to be protected. Fairness is very important. It is the key word when it comes to such deals and contracts. So it is everywhere. When we are talking about the social component of a society and eliminating classes and discrimination, then we are talking about fairness and solidarity. We are talking about justice to be spread. When we are talking about fighting corruption, then this means that justice is the focal point. Fairness, equal opportunities, just policies in dealing with others. Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam has warned even his own daughter, his beloved daughter and his aunt. He said to them, when he was, approached by one of his beloved companions, Usama bin Zayd, who was considered, because he was under the guardianship of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but before the prohibition of adoption, he was even named Usama ibn Muhammad. But of course his real father is Zayd ibn Haritha. And then there was a tribal woman from the tribe of Quraysh who was guilty of stealing. And of course the penalty was that her hand is to be cut off. So the tribal men, the leaders of the tribe of Quraysh, found it very difficult how it is that an honorable woman is going to receive this harsh penalty. But they know that they cannot talk to the Prophet, peace be upon him. There's no compromise on such things. There are no existence of these norms that this social discrimination that they refer to. So they used one of his beloved companions, Usama, and they asked him to talk to Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam to make the punishment lesser, more easier. And Usama, unknowingly, he approached Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But the answer from the messenger was very clear, very explicit. He got angry and he blamed Usama of his interference, and he said, I swear by Allah the Almighty, if it is my own daughter to do so, then I wouldn't hesitate to cut off her hand. This is the justice that we are talking about. This is the system which we are calling for.
So there is no favoritism.
Absolutely.
Yeah, everyone is equal.
Everyone
in the
is
sight of Allah.
absolutely. And even in the sight of the Sharia itself, in the sight of the legal system that people would refer to in their conflicts and their demands.
Sheikh, we would like to end today's show with some practical examples, on how a state would be able to implement the Sharia, whether the state is a Muslim state or a non-Muslim state.
Well, I have to admit also that I cannot claim that I'm competent to draw a map on how to do so, but let me give some of my thoughts.
Yes.
First of all, it is to increase the awareness of the people. This is the I think the first step is to increase the consciousness of the people. Second, we need to define Sharia precisely. It is not enough that we just call on to Sharia. What Sharia are we calling? What version of Sharia? As we have, because it has been unfortunately hijacked by many violent groups, many terrorists, and it has been also attacked by many liberal secularistic thinkers.
Yes.
We need to define it precisely.
What it means.
Absolutely. Third, it is important also to understand, as some of Muslim speakers in the West says, that the Quran is not only a message, but it is also a method. And this is absolutely right. I do agree to 100% that the methodology found in the Quran has to be implemented. Let's take the example of the prohibition of wine and alcoholic drinks in Islam. It has gone through 3 stages. Some scholars say 4 stages. First of all, يسألونك عن الخمر والميسر قل فيهما إثم كبير ومنافع للناس وإثمهما أكبر من نفعهما. You are asked about alcohol and usury. So say that they do contain evil and they do have some benefits, yet their harmfulness is greater than their usefulness. That was the first stage. And then comes, it was revealed to Muslims, وَلَا تَقْرَبُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَأَنْتُمْ سُكَارَى. Do not be close by
or come
your
close.
prayer while you are drunk.
Yes.
And we all know that we are performing prayers 5 times a day. So there isn't enough time. So the only time that at that time Muslims were can drink, so after the Isha prayer until the Fajr prayer, and also not in large quantities, otherwise they will still be dizzy and drunk in the Fajr, in the dawn prayer, particularly in nights of summer, where we have short nights in the Arabian. And then comes the final prohibition, when Allah the Almighty has revealed to them that it is prohibited and you must refrain.
So it was a gradual
It was a gradual
change.
Absolutely. So we do need, I'm just giving an example.
Yes.
How to approach those who are different. They belong to different cultures, to different faiths, to different religions. There is a method of how to deal with them in the Holy Quran. It's not only, as I said, a message, but there is a method in the Holy Quran. Even the words that we are using, even how to approach them, how to talk to them, how to deal with how has Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam constructed his state. When they were a group in the Meccan period, they have an approach to their religion, which is different than the approach they have when they migrated to Al-Madinah. And at the beginning also, even in Al-Madinah, let's take the example of signing treaties and agreements with all the settlers of Al-Madinah, including the Jews, and they were in large quantities there, and the disbelievers who were in the tribal settlements around Al-Madinah at that time. But Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the first statement in this treaty is that all settlers of Al-Madinah are one nation. So here we do have a system which encompasses all the components, all the diverse components of the society. So we do need this method. And the fourth step is giving the right order of priorities.
Right order of priorities.
I think that it is very important, because if we confuse between priorities, then we will end up in a mess.
Yes.
And of course, I mean, to classify these priorities needs a lot of efforts and different expertise only. I'm not claiming that this should be done by religious people.
Yes.
But all expertise should participate in making this order of priorities. And
5.
Probably the fifth step is, of course, to be practical and positive. And I mean by being practical and positive that there are a lot of challenges, and wouldn't expect that we would be able to achieve our noble goal without encountering these challenges. When we face these challenges with good spirit and with positive spirit, knowing that this is natural, these obstacles are very natural, they are part of our life, and it wouldn't be as we expect that an easy gain that we will achieve, is part of understanding the nature of implementing Sharia in our life. So, but we have to be positive, we have to be very practical. I think the last one is to provide alternative. And I mean by alternative within Sharia itself. Codifying the Sharia to a coded law, I mean common law or civil law or penalty law, also ought to be with different options, different alternatives. We have to recognize also the diversity of life, the different cultural and civilizational elements found in different societies with different nations.
Yes.
And this Sharia is comprehensive of all these diverse elements and factors. So we have to have also different alternatives. We shouldn't be tough and rigid for only one alternative, while there are. This is a very exhausting effort, but we have to do it. Of course, I mean, we shouldn't forget sincerity and good intention. And these are the essential, of course, elements of any such project or approach. Allah Ta'ala knows best.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Kahlan bin Nabhan Al-Kharousi, for your time and effort and for sparing this valuable information about Sharia in the 3 episodes.
Well, I'm not sparing them, I am sharing them with you.
You're sharing them. I'm sure we have all benefited a lot. Myself personally, I've learned a lot from you in the past episodes and this episode as well. And I hope we have fulfilled the best that we can in covering the topic of Sharia. So see you next week, inshallah.
Thank you very much, Brother Hatem. Inshallah, see you next week.
Dear listeners, this is Hatem Al-Absalam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.